you could use similar textured surfaces for things like garden ornaments. And here I have a photograph of a statue from which I'm going to work, and I've already painted a monochrome background around it so that I can concentrate on the colour of the textures of these effects, which are, I would think, some of them growths, some of them where the statue may have been knocked over the years. There is a very interesting texture on this sort of surface. I'm going to start by applying some of the green that I can see as positive shapes in an uneven way, so that I'm encouraging little white areas to remain. And before it dries, I'm just going to blend those edges out a little. So rather than dropping in, as I did with the stone wall, dropping the colour into a damp background, I am putting the colour onto a dry background and dampening the edges to get these effects. Some areas can actually almost blend in with the background, and then others can come back into leaving these white blotches on the stonework. And quickly, before they dry, I go in with a little bit of moisture to encourage that uneven edge. I can also use the other technique of putting some water on and dropping a green into it and watching it blend when I want more delicate areas. And there is an area on the arm here that has more delicate blending. So I put the damp in and then add to it, and out that comes and gives me a nice gentle effect. Another way of creating texture is by following the surface of the paper. And as your brush dries out, or even if it's not dry enough, you can dry it a little bit on some tissue, you graze the surface. And this is the dry brush effect that actually gets you a texture. So that's almost dry onto dry. So in this one arm of this statue, I've done 3 different techniques to achieve texture. And you'll see how the first one calls separation of colour, the next one is blending out into the wet paper, and the third one is this dry brush effect, which I would drag across first to give an overall green. And then, because the statue has a brownish tinge to it there, dry the brush out, hence dry brush. Do make sure it's not too wet as you apply it, and scrape the surface. And if you had a stiffer brush, actually you can scrape it even harder and get some lovely textures. This one's a soft brush, but it's still producing the type of texture I want for that side of the arm. A lot of this is slightly in shadow down this side. I'm still regarding all this as an undercoat, so I'm not saying that this is the final textured effect I'll see, because my final one will be much darker. I'm now looking at the folds of the cloth and the way they come out there, so I'm doing a swift stroke, just getting that texture coming along and twisting this way, quite swift, encouraging this dry brush effect as it comes round like that. At this point here, there is a mark on the statue that's light, so I'm going to go away from it on both sides to enhance that shape, and I'm now travelling up into what is a brown area again. I'm still only following the idea of this statue's garment. I'm not really going to look for every crease because it is so old now, they're sometimes difficult to define. So it's the impression I want to achieve. Here there's a dark area, and here there's another dark area coming down this way, and it's quite dark under there, so I'm going to do that under that bit of clothing and suggest that the arm comes in front there. And I don't want it to be a sudden stop, so I'm going to blend it off the edge of the picture. Pull it down there. Now there's some more green up the top, and that's quite a light green, and I'm pushing up towards the light on the shoulder because there's quite a bit of highlight along this shoulder. There are some areas I will decide to leave as white paper here. So I'm pulling the shape round, following the form, and at this point we have a bit of shadow because that is where the cloth actually stops. All the folds of cloth under the arm stop there. Here, around that area, we do have a highlight again. So I gently go around, and I've decided to leave that white and white along here. There's a little bit of green just there. Now coming up to the head. Now the top of the head has the light hitting it quite strongly, so I'm not going to do much on that. Going around the side, the back of the hair, I'm going to add a little bit of water to just blend it out. And also there's a highlight there, so I don't want it too dark. So really what I'm doing is looking for the highlight areas and the areas that are in shadow to start creating the form. The bowl has more brown than green, so I'm going to get a little bit warmer there. There's a warm side this side, and there's some warm colour under the ridge and under here. And then we get down onto the fingers that are holding it. There's a little bit of texture there. All this is dark again, so another coat goes on to blend in. There's a strong highlight coming through there. Now I've basically got the groundwork done. I've decided where the highlights are going to be, across the top of the head, down the shoulder, on the cheek, and now I'm going to work around them a bit. I'm feeling I might go to a different type of brush. So if you get a brush that's a little bit stiffer, and stipple it across the surface. And I'm just going to add that dark down the side of the arm carefully. And to get more texture, I'll make sure it's not too wet. Drag it across my finger. You can see how the texture is now being created because I've lost the moisture from the brush. There's some shadow under here. The brush now is really quite dry, so all the marks going down are textured marks. And I would just carry on around the rest of the statue and finish it in the same way. If you have problems painting hair or fur on animals and you don't have live models to refer to, a cuddly toy like this is sometimes an ideal subject. And the best way to learn from it actually is to take a photograph so that you have a two-dimensional image, and then you can start painting and refer to that. And I always start with the eyes. Even on a toy, the eyes are the important character that we're going to look for. So I'm going straight in, painting the shape of the eye and allowing for a little bit of highlight on it. And because the eye has hair crossing over it, I'm going to leave the shape of the hair cutting into that image. I'm working on a tinted paper. This is a tinted Bockingford. They're lovely papers to work on. I felt that this colour actually would enhance the study, which I've drawn first, very lightly, from a sketch from the photograph. And I'm going to keep the paint reasonably dry at the moment, and I'm just feeling my way round some of these shapes, because what I'm looking for are negative shapes. I'm not putting on as a solid shape the hair, I'm looking at the dark behind groups of hair, because it's what I leave out that is going to make the impression, not what I put in. And actually I'm hardly making any marks at the moment. The only marks I'm putting down are very tiny indications that are going to be the basis from which I work. And then there's that bit that comes over there. So in actual fact, this strand's coming over and that one's coming under. I'm doing it very pale to start with. And the reason being that if I did decide I didn't like the position, I could easily mop this up, because this could be sponged off. It's one of the colours that you can sponge off without it leaving a stain. And I'm looking at some of these shapes here, and I'm going to keep it quite wet and just pull that in quickly. There's a dark shape going across there, another one coming out there. I'm cutting in on that one. I'm doing swift strokes coming away from those edges. So they are quite sweeping strokes, and they're coming away from the dark shapes I see. So where I actually start, which is in that dark indentation, that's the important area. I sweep away from it for the hair highlights. Looking at some more dark shapes here. The piece of hair that hits over there actually follows through to a nice shape on the ear, so I'm following through on that one. And there's another dark shape over here which I'm going to put in and pull away. Now I think I will mix the paler colour and fill in more of the ear. So this area comes out. I'm thinking of the light colour cutting into those. It's really just putting on the undercoat, and I try to get this undercoat on reasonably quickly, and then I can start homing in and working from the eye again. Now I've already put the nose in, so I can actually go to the nose without working my way across to get the dark in there. That's got some light hair overlapping it, and another piece of dark here, and another thin light hair there, and then the other one goes that way. So everything is cutting in. I gently curve it, working outwards slowly so that I'm sure I've got the shape I want. This light shape crosses the eye and goes right over, so the second eye itself is a 3/4 view really, hardly any of it showing. And now I'm going to bring in the ear the other side. I'm working down the side, cutting in, getting the dark behind there and blending out. I'm going to complete the dog now using the same techniques, looking for the negative shapes within the fur. This demonstration shows you that it's not necessary to have a live model if you want to paint hair or fur. A cuddly toy is very helpful. I hope I've helped you solve some of your painting problems and that you'll see some new ideas that you want to try out. Happy painting!
Now available on DVD. Try these techniques yourself at home whenever you wish. The extended version of today's workshop is now available to order on DVD from the Painting and Drawing channel. For further information and to order your copy, go to www.paintingdrawingchannel.com.